Human man made alien diplomat woman his wife for revenge. The hall of the imperial consulate was an engine of ceremony. Polished floors reflecting 1,000 watching eyes, voices hushed as if the very air had been bribed into silence. Rylan stood at the center, his uniform pressed to perfection, metals gleaming like weapons, his jaw tightened with the discipline of a soldier who had decided to turn humiliation into theater. Across from him stood Selira, diplomat of the Elvari, her long ears arched elegantly like sculpted ivory, her eyes so sharp they might have sliced through the steel beams overhead. The officiator, a droid with too much static in its speech processor, mispronounced both their names twice before finally declaring the Union official. Selira did not flinch. Her expression was carved of pride and disdain, as though she were at once a queen and a prisoner. She leaned toward Rylan, her lips barely moving, her voice a whisper meant only for him. "I will never forgive you." Rylan smirked, not out of joy but out of spite. "You won't have to. Forgiveness was never on my guest list." The crowd erupted into polite applause, though the tension that hummed beneath the marble columns could have powered a small fleet. High-ranking officials exchanged glances like gamblers realizing the table had been rigged. Rylan caught sight of Admiral Brask, the very man who had orchestrated the betrayal that left his command stripped of honor. The old vulture clapped with stiff hands, his smile as fake as the toupee perched on his skull. The sight brought Rylan a wicked spark of satisfaction. Selira's hand in his was warm but stiff, like gripping a live wire coated in frost. She did not look at him again as the droid droned through the ceremonial clauses. He stole a glance at her nonetheless. She was infuriatingly composed, even beautiful in her fury. He hated her for it, and hated himself more for noticing. When the droid announced, "You may now engage in the culturally appropriate display of union," Rylan leaned toward her, just enough to provoke. Selira's response was to tilt her head in such a way that her long ear jabbed him sharply in the cheek. The crowd gasped. Rylan winced, then chuckled. "Guess that's the Elvari version of a kiss." The laughter rippled uneasily through the hall, breaking the tension like a poorly timed sneeze. Selira allowed herself the faintest of smiles, though one aimed more at mocking him than at sharing the moment. After the ceremony, the reception swelled with music and chatter. A string quartet of androids produced melodies that sounded suspiciously like starship alarms, and trays of glowing cocktails floated on anti-gravity discs between clusters of gossiping guests. Rylan led Selira through the throng, the hand still bound by the ceremonial tether, a golden band of energy that would not dissolve until midnight. "You planned this to humiliate me," Selira said, her voice low, though every syllable cut like crystal. "To humiliate your empire," Rylan corrected, snagging a glass from a passing tray. The drink hissed as he swallowed. "You're just the unfortunate bonus prize. Then may your victory taste of ashes." "Funny, it tastes like lime." She rolled her eyes, the long tips of her ears flicking as though they, too, disapproved. Guests whispered as they passed, some feigning congratulations, others glaring openly. Selira endured it with a posture so regal that one might forget she was shackled in humiliation. Rylan matched her stride, though his own composure was held together with stubbornness rather than grace. When the orchestra attempted a human Elvari fusion waltz, Rylan pulled Selira to the floor. She resisted, her heels dragging, but the tether forced her hand into his. Their movements were clumsy, mismatched, the human rhythm colliding with Elvari elegance until they resembled two malfunctioning drones attempting aerial maneuvers. Laughter bubbled from the crowd, some mocking, some delighted. Selira hissed under her breath, "You dance like a broken cargo loader." "Better than a politician's apology," Rylan countered, narrowly avoiding a collision with the buffet table. Their performance, disastrous as it was, achieved its purpose. The Empire's representatives squirmed with embarrassment, their dignitary twirling unwillingly in the arms of the very man they had betrayed. For Rylan, revenge tasted sweeter than any wine. For Selira, the humiliation was unbearable. Yet somewhere in the stumble and swirl, their eyes locked, not with affection, but with recognition. Both were trapped, both wounded, both unwilling to yield. When midnight came and the tether dissolved into sparks, Selira withdrew her hand as though it had been poisoned. She strode toward the exit without a word, her gown trailing like a comet's tail. Rylan remained behind, lifting another glass in mock salute to the Empire's delegation. "To peace and partnership," he declared, earning groans from half the room and nervous laughter from the other half. Later, in the quarters assigned to them, Selira sat rigidly on the far side of the chamber, arms folded, ears twitching like antennae scanning for escape routes. Rylan entered, tossing his jacket onto a chair, unbothered by the venom in her gaze. "You've made your point," she said. "The galaxy has seen me humiliated. Release me now." He loosened his collar, smirking. "Release you? Oh no, Ambassador. This show's just getting started." Her laugh was bitter, sharp. "You think this marriage makes you strong? It makes you desperate, and I do not respect desperate men." Rylan sat across from her, meeting her eyes with equal intensity. "Respect was never part of my plan. Survival was." The silence stretched, thick with unspoken truths. Selira turned away, muttering in her native tongue, a phrase that translated loosely to, "May your socks always remain damp." Rylan, catching the gist, chuckled. "Careful," he said. "That almost sounded like affection." Her glare returned, brighter than any star. "If you mistake contempt for affection, Commander, this union will be far more entertaining than I expected." And so began their strange orbit around one another. Two wounded worlds colliding not in love, but in something far messier, far more dangerous. The galaxy outside whispered of scandal, but within their shared walls, the true war had only just begun. The first morning after the wedding began with the kind of silence that felt deliberate, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Rylan rose early, his soldier's routine refusing to be disrupted by marriage or scandal. He found Selira already awake, seated at the long table in the common chamber, sipping something steaming and fragrant from a crystalline cup. Her posture was flawless, her face unreadable, but her long ears flicked once in mild irritation when she noticed him. "Good morning, wife," Rylan said cheerfully, pouring himself a mug of bitter human CAF. She lowered her cup slowly, her eyes narrowing. "If you intend to greet me with that word every morning, Commander, I will find a way to make your tongue fall off." "Noted," he replied, taking a loud slurp. "Still, you can't deny it has a nice ring. Wife, husband, we sound almost domestic." Selira's lip curled. "Yes, like a domestic infestation." The service droid floated in, announcing the day's schedule with irritating punctuality. It listed diplomatic briefings, security checks, and a joint appearance before the Galactic Press Corps. Selira interrupted with a sharp wave of her hand. "Cancel the press." "Apologies, Ambassador." The droid beeped. "The press has already been informed of your availability. A refusal would cause diplomatic offense." Selira groaned, rubbing her temple. Rylan hid his grin behind his cup. "Smile for the cameras, dear. Maybe they'll capture your good side." "All of my sides are good." She rose with the grace of a blade being unsheathed. "Yours, however, required generous lighting and perhaps a holographic filter." Hours later, they faced the reporters, humans, Elvari, and a half-dozen other species, whose voices overlapped like a malfunctioning radio. Holospheres hovered overhead, projecting their images live across star systems. Questions flew. "Ambassador, how do you reconcile this marriage with Elvari dignity? Commander, was this union sanctioned by your fleet? Will there be children, and if so, will their ears be regulation length?" Rylan fielded the last question without hesitation. "We're still debating whether to raise them as soldiers or diplomats. Probably smugglers. It's the only career path that combines both skills." The room erupted in laughter. Selira's glare could have disintegrated asteroids. Yet, when another reporter pressed her, asking if she felt humiliated, she straightened and delivered her reply with icy precision. "I am a diplomat. I do not feel. I calculate. If my presence in this arrangement furthers stability, then I endure it. Though," she added, casting Rylan a sideways glance, "some calculations yield a remainder of deep regret." The quote spread across networks within minutes. Memes appeared almost instantly. Rylan's face labeled as deep regret, Selira's as the calculation. After the conference, the two retreated to their quarters, followed by a trail of snickering aides. Rylan collapsed into a chair, tugging at his collar. That went well. Selira sat opposite him, still flawless, though her fingers tapped the armrest in rapid rhythm. You think public humiliation counts as well? Humiliation's a matter of perspective. They laughed. That means they're not reaching for blasters. I call that progress. She regarded him in silence, then shook her head. You're impossible. Thank you. The days that followed settled into a bizarre rhythm. Meals were battlegrounds of sarcasm. Rylan cooked once, presenting scrambled protein with pride. Selira stared at it as though he'd offered her a dead insect. This is not food. This is penance. Eat it or starve. Those are your options. She took one reluctant bite, chewed with agonizing slowness, and announced, I choose starvation. Evenings were no less absurd. Selira occupied herself with long diplomatic reports, her voice echoing through dictation crystals. Rylan tinkered with the holographic chess program, often muttering insults at the artificial opponent. You call that a rook move? My grandmother could play better, and she's been space dust for a decade. Selira would glance up occasionally, sigh, and mutter in Elvari. Humans are proof that evolution occasionally takes a vacation. Their servants, guards, and aides soon began placing bets on who would break first. Would Selira storm back to her people, or would Rylan crack under the weight of her disdain? Neither obliged them. Instead, their verbal duels became something the staff secretly looked forward to, entertainment disguised as tension. The turning point arrived one night, when an assassination attempt shattered the fragile routine. A drone disguised as a cleaning unit infiltrated their residence, its concealed plasma charge primed to detonate. Rylan noticed it first, his soldier's instinct screaming at the odd hum beneath its casing. He shoved Selira aside just as the device unfolded its hidden weapon. Blaster fire echoed as guards swarmed. Selira, quicker than expected, grabbed a ceremonial spear from the wall and hurled it with uncanny precision, skewering the drone before it could detonate. The weapon sparked, fizzled, then collapsed harmlessly. Breathing hard, Rylan glanced at her, astonished. Not bad for a diplomat. She tossed her hair back, ears twitching with smug pride. Not bad for a soldier's wife. The words hung in the air, startling them both. Then, as the guards dragged away the wreckage, Selira's eyes softened for a fraction of a heartbeat. Rylan, rubbing the scorch mark on his sleeve, chuckled. Guess we make a decent team when people are trying to kill us. Don't get used to it, she replied, though her voice lacked its usual venom. For the first time, their laughter, quiet, unplanned, mingled in the same space. The walls no longer held their breath. They exhaled, and in that release, something shifted, small but undeniable. The galaxy still watched, still whispered, still mocked. But inside their quarters, amid sarcasm and sparks, the war between them had begun to change shape. Neither of them admitted it, but both felt it. This union was no longer just about revenge or humiliation. It was becoming something far more complicated, and infinitely more dangerous. The assassination attempt lingered in the air like a ghost neither of them wished to mention, but the Empire had no patience for silence. Within days, a delegation of Elvari envoys arrived, demanding an audience with Selira. They came in gleaming silver robes, their ears taller than hers as if to advertise authority, their eyes sharp with indignation. Rylan sat at the head of the chamber, boots propped on the table, chewing something that smelled suspiciously like dried rations. This marriage is a travesty, declared High Envoy Velerin, his voice carrying the weight of 12 councils. Ambassador Selira will annul it at once. Selira's reply was smooth, almost lazy, but every word a blade. Annul it? I fear you misunderstand. I have already endured the ceremony, the tether, and the press corps' questions about ear length. To annul it now would be wasteful. Efficiency demands otherwise. The envoys bristled. Rylan smirked, dropping his boots and leaning forward. What she means is, she likes me. Selira's elbow connected sharply with his ribs. He coughed but didn't stop grinning. Fine, she tolerates me. On good days. Velarin slammed his hand on the table, rattling the holographic notes. This union is an insult to Elvari honor. Selira's eyes narrowed. Then perhaps our honor needs thicker skin. The argument spiraled. Envoys threatening sanctions, Rylan throwing in quips that only fueled their outrage. Finally, Selira rose, silencing them with one raised hand. Her voice softened into diplomatic steel. I will not be commanded. Not by humans, not by you. I remain here of my own choice. The envoys left in furious silence, robes fluttering like angry sails. As the doors hissed shut, Rylan leaned close. You just told them you chose this. Careful, people might start thinking you enjoy my company. Her ear twitched dangerously close to his face. If I ever enjoy your company, Commander, the galaxy will implode. That night, news of the meeting spread faster than hyperspace signals. Commentators speculated endlessly. Had Selira truly chosen to stay? Or was it another layer of political theater? Rylan flipped through channels, snorting at headlines like the love scandal of the century and ear-length versus jawline. Who wins? Selira stalked past him, muttering. Your species has an obsession with trivialities. Trivialities keep them from rioting, he replied. Besides, you should see what they say about my hair. Apparently, it looks like a solar storm. She paused, glanced at him, and smirked despite herself. Accurate. Their uneasy rhythm deepened in unexpected ways. Joint briefings became bearable, their banter distracting enough to make long hours pass quickly. Rylan began teaching her human slang, much to her annoyance. When she once referred to a rival envoy as a piece of burnt toast, the entire staff nearly collapsed, trying not to laugh. Selira blamed Rylan. Your language is a contagion. And you caught it beautifully, he said. But humor wasn't always enough. The assassination attempt had not been isolated. Security intercepted encrypted transmissions, threats promising more corrections to this unholy union. One night, Rylan found Selira standing alone by the viewport, staring at the stars. You're worried, he said. I do not worry, she replied. I anticipate. Sounds like worry with better vocabulary. Her long ears twitched, betraying unease. If they cannot break us with shame, they will try with blood. Rylan stepped beside her, folding his arms. Then they'll find out neither of us bleed easily. Their moment was broken by a sudden chime, the ship's AI announcing an incoming emergency transmission. The hologram flickered to life, showing the outer colonies under attack by rebel fleets. Explosions painted the projection in fire and shadow. Rylan straightened instantly, the soldier in him awakened. I'm taking a squadron. Selira caught his arm. You are not leaving me behind. This isn't a diplomatic tea party. It's a war zone. And I am not porcelain. I go where peace is broken. He met her eyes, saw the iron beneath the elegance, and realized there would be no argument strong enough. Fine, he muttered. But if you get yourself killed, I'm telling the galaxy it was your idea. Their journey to the colonies was a trial in itself. The rebel fleet struck fast, ships darting like hornets, plasma fire streaking across the void. Rylan's command voice filled the comms, crisp and confident, guiding human and Elvari crews alike. Selira, seated beside him on the bridge, broadcast comm instructions to frightened civilians, her tone steady as gravity. When their cruiser was boarded, chaos erupted. Soldiers clashed in narrow corridors, metal ringing with blaster fire. Selira fought with surprising ferocity, wielding a plasma staff with elegance that turned combat into dance. At one point, she saved Rylan from a blade aimed at his back, spinning the staff to knock the attacker unconscious. Breathless, he stared at her. Remind me never to argue with you about chores. She smirked, striking down another rebel. I would win anyway. Together, they pushed the boarders back, their rhythm uncanny, as though war had finally forced them into sync. When the last enemy fell, silence flooded the corridor, broken only by their ragged breathing. Rylan leaned against the wall, laughing softly. Not bad, wife. Selira rolled her eyes, but there was no venom, only exhaustion, and something softer, unspoken. Not bad, husband. For the first time, the word didn't sound like an insult. When the battle ended, the colonies cheered their survival. Yet rumors spread just as fast. The human commander and the Elvari diplomat had fought side by side, their unity turning the tide. Some whispered admiration, others fear. But across the stars, one truth took root. This marriage, once a scandal, had become something else entirely. And neither of them knew what to do about it. The aftermath of the colony battle was chaos disguised as celebration. Civilians hailed them as saviors, though Rylan swore half the cheering was for Selira, who had looked far too elegant while dismantling armed rebels with a plasma staff. On the return flight, the crew decorated the bridge with makeshift garlands of ration wrappers and sang drunken victory songs in 6 different languages. Selira endured it all with folded arms and the expression of a queen trapped at a particularly loud family reunion. "You could at least pretend to enjoy this," Rylan said, raising a flask someone had pressed into his hand. "I do not drink victory," Selira replied. "It tastes like arrogance." Rylan took a long swig and grimaced. "No, this tastes like engine coolant, but the arrogance comes free." Their uneasy camaraderie had become noticeable to others. Reports flooded the networks of their battlefield cooperation, their sharp banter replayed like theater. Commentators wondered aloud if the marriage had transformed into genuine alliance. One broadcast replayed Selira's words, "Not bad, husband," on loop, dissecting her tone as if it were a prophecy. Rylan nearly spit his drink when he saw it. "They're analyzing your sarcasm like scripture," he said, shoving the holoscreen toward her. Selira pinched the bridge of her nose. The galaxy has lost its mind. Their return to the capital was no less absurd. Crowds lined the docks, holding banners that read unity in chaos and love conquers plasma fire. Someone even waved a sign that read long ears plus strong jawline equals peace. Rylan waved like a politician. Selira glared like she wanted the crowd vaporized. Inside the council chambers, however, celebration curdled into confrontation. Representatives accused them of orchestrating the battle for publicity. Others claimed the marriage had destabilized entire sectors. The debate escalated until Rylan, tired of the noise, leaned across the table and said, "If we wanted publicity, I'd have proposed on live holovision while juggling torpedoes." Selira hid her laugh behind a cough, but several diplomats looked scandalized. Later, alone in their quarters, the tension broke in stranger ways. Rylan tossed a datapad onto the table. "They think this marriage is a threat to galactic order." Selira arched an elegant brow. "For once, they are correct." He chuckled. "Then what do we do? Keep pretending this is just revenge and humiliation?" Her silence stretched long, her ears twitching faintly. Finally she said, "Pretending is simpler. Safer." "Since when do you like simple?" "Since you complicated everything." They didn't resolve it, but the words lingered. In the weeks that followed, they were assigned to a joint mission, negotiating with the Krell, a reptilian species infamous for considering humor an act of war. Rylan nearly sparked a blood feud when he joked about their scales looking like fancy dinner plates. Selira intervened smoothly, translating his insult into something resembling a compliment about their reflective ceremonial armor. Later, in private, she scolded him. "You will get us both devoured." "Worth it to see you panic," he said. "I did not panic. I recalibrated." Their mission ended in reluctant success, but not before Rylan managed to accidentally sit on a Krell sacred stool, which apparently symbolized fertility. Selira refused to explain why the Krell warriors kept bowing to him afterward. "Why do I get the feeling I just married an entire reptilian clan?" he asked. "Because you are slow, but not entirely brainless," she replied, smirking. Despite the chaos, something grew between them, an unspoken thread that pulled tighter with every mission. Late nights found them side by side at the viewport, bickering softly about constellations. Rylan claimed one cluster looked like a blaster rifle. Selira insisted it was clearly an Elvari harp. They bet on it, promising the loser would cook breakfast. Rylan lost, attempted pancakes, and produced charred discs that could have been used as ship armor. Selira ate half of one with regal dignity before declaring, "Truly, a weaponized cuisine." But the galaxy did not let them hide in banter. Another transmission arrived, this time from the Empire itself. The ultimatum was blunt. Selira must return to Elvari space, or war would ignite. She read the message twice, her expression unreadable. Rylan leaned against the console, arms crossed. "Looks like they're done sending assassins. They believe I have betrayed them." "Have you?" She looked at him, eyes sharp but wavering. "I remained when I could have left. I fought beside you when I could have stepped aside. By their measure, yes. By mine, that sounds like loyalty." "Loyalty to whom?" she asked softly. The question cut deeper than plasma fire. Rylan wanted to answer, but found no words. The council demanded her immediate departure. Rylan, for once, offered no sarcasm. "If you go, you'll never come back. You know that. And if I stay, then you'll have me. Which, depending on the day, might be worse." She laughed despite herself, shaking her head. "You are infuriating. Best quality I've got." The decision loomed like a black hole, swallowing every thought. Their war of pride and vengeance had transformed into something neither could name, and the galaxy was waiting to see which one of them would yield first. But for that night, they sat at the viewport again, stars spilling endlessly before them. No councils, no threats, no ultimatums. Just two stubborn souls pretending the galaxy could wait. And for a while it did. The ultimatum came with a countdown. The Elvari fleet positioned itself on the edge of human space, their ships gleaming like knives in the dark. The human high command responded by mobilizing its own armada. The galaxy watched, breath held, as war threatened to erupt over what had begun as an act of revenge disguised as marriage. In the council chamber, Rylan faced both sides. Human admirals barked for action. Elvari envoys demanded Selira's immediate return, and the press outside screamed questions like starving animals. Rylan sat silently through it all, hands clasped, jaw tight. For the first time since this all began, his silence was not a weapon. Selira spoke instead. "I will not return as a prisoner," she told her own people, "and I will not remain as a trophy." She looked at Rylan, her voice steady but softer. "If I stay, it will be by choice. If I leave, it will be by choice. That is what neither of you understands." Velerin, ever the venomous envoy, sneered. "And what is your choice, ambassador? To abandon your people for a human who chains you with mockery?" Her ears twitched, but she did not look away. "My people taught me that dignity is sacred, but I have learned dignity is not silence, nor obedience. It is deciding who you are, even when the galaxy disapproves." She glanced at Rylan. "Even when a man thinks cooking charred discs counts as breakfast." A ripple of startled laughter spread through the chamber. Rylan groaned. "Really? You're going to immortalize my pancakes in galactic history?" "Yes," she said firmly, "because they were awful, and because you tried." The humor cracked the tension, but the decision remained. Selira turned back to her envoys. "You wanted me to prove that I am still Elvari. So I will. By making my own choice. I stay." The chamber erupted, outrage, shock, disbelief. The human admirals muttered nervously about escalation, while the Elvari shouted betrayal. But Selira raised her voice above them all. "If you fire on humans for my decision, you prove yourselves cowards. If you fire on me, you prove yourselves tyrants. And if you fire on both, then you prove me right, that this galaxy is in desperate need of something greater than pride." The silence that followed was heavy. Even Velerin could not summon an immediate retort. Rylan rose slowly, finally finding his voice. "I married you to shame them," he said, his eyes sweeping the room. "But it turns out I shamed myself, because what I called revenge was really just fear. Fear that I was powerless, fear that I'd lost everything. But standing next to her, I've realized something. She doesn't need me to fight for her. She needs me to fight with her." He let out a breath. "So if you want her, you'll have to go through me. And I warn you, I fight dirtier than she does." Selira smirked. "True. He cheats at chess." The laughter this time was louder, rolling through even the human council. The tension cracked. The threat of war did not vanish, but it bent, fractured, became less inevitable. For the first time, the idea of peace seemed less like a myth. The Elvari envoys retreated to reconsider. Human admirals muttered about strategic opportunities. And the galaxy spun on. But for Rylan and Selira, the battle was over. Not the war outside, perhaps, but the one between them. In their quarters later, Rylan collapsed into a chair. Well, congratulations. You might have just prevented interstellar war with a pancake joke. Selira sat across from him, regal as ever. Humor is diplomacy. You should try it more often. I did. That's how we ended up married. Her laugh was genuine this time, not sharp or mocking. Perhaps the galaxy needed this farce after all. He leaned forward, studying her. So you stayed. Not for revenge. Not for politics. For you. For me. She agreed. Then, after a pause. And perhaps a little for you. His grin was crooked, uncertain, but real. Careful. That almost sounded like affection. It was contempt, she corrected, though her eyes betrayed her. The galaxy outside would continue its arguments, its wars, its gossip. But within those walls, something new had been born. Not out of duty, not out of vengeance, but out of the strange, stubborn bond between two people who had every reason to hate each other and somehow found something better. Rylan raised an imaginary toast. To pancakes, politics, and peace. Selira shook her head, but the corner of her mouth curved upward. May your socks forever remain damp. He laughed, louder than he had in years, and for the first time, the sound was not edged with bitterness. It was hope, unpolished and absurd, but hope all the same. And so the soldier who had once sought only revenge, and the diplomat who had sworn never to forgive, found themselves standing at the start of something neither had planned. Not war, not humiliation, but the fragile, impossible truth of love. The end.